Welcome, everyone, to Latter Daily Digest. We honor creators, and today we have.
Hi, I'm Ben Jalaff, all the way from London, Ontario, Canada.
That's right, you look Canadian to me, and you sound Canadian. I'm just teasing. And Ben was recently on Mormon Stories, and I was just so impressed with Ben and the wisdom that he learned from his dad and other things that he thought about. He became Mormon and went on a mission and did all the things, and then found out other things. But let's get maybe 5 or 10 minutes of growing up in Venezuela.
I grew up in Venezuela. I was born in Caracas, and my Mormonism began very early, actually. I was just a young kid when my parents were baptized. They were baptized just because they were promised that they'll see their deceased children in the afterlife, and that's why they joined. Not long after they were baptized, like I explained on the podcast, Mormon Stories, they went inactive right away. Venezuela's a third world country, and if you don't work on Sundays, you don't make money. So they never really committed to go to church full time there. And I lived in Venezuela until I was 14 years old. I joined the church when I was 11. I didn't know my parents were Mormon until one day the missionaries happened to be in my house. And 2 weeks later, I was baptized. Don't ask me if I knew whether it was true or not, because when I was 11, I certainly didn't know what I was doing. I just put my trust in my parents because they always had my best interest. And in Venezuela, if you have more community, you have a bigger chance of surviving, the roughness of the country. So I even remember my parents joining the Lions Club just because it offered another layer of community for them and for me. So when I joined the church, I didn't know much about it. I just knew that if my parents said that it's a good place, okay, I'll go ahead and join. I don't
And
even think my parents knew
would they
what.
go with you early on? So you're 11 years old.
Yeah,
You try to go every week for a little while?
yeah, we did. There were certain Sundays we didn't go, but yeah, I remember going to church with my parents. They joined the choir, and I remember, my dad will have a calling in the stake. He was the executive secretary.
Secretary.
Yeah, for a little bit. So yeah, I do remember going, but at the same time, it wasn't a thing past Sunday. Like church happened on Sundays, and then Monday to Saturday,
just live your life.
Just live your life. Like I have school and baseball, and then I have friends, and I didn't have many friends in the church. Most of my friends were non-Mormon. So that's what life was in Venezuela. I didn't really look at the church as just a place we went on Sundays to feel good about Jesus and God, and up we went home, and it was fine.
And you became a deacon soon after. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
yeah. I became a deacon. I was in primary only for the 1 year, and then I became a deacon in Venezuela. I like that because, like I explain in Mormon Stories, kids in Venezuela are very different. If you see a kid from North America at that age, there's a different scenario in Venezuela when kids get into things a lot quicker. We talked about that on the Mormon Stories. Kids at the age of 11 and 12, they have full-time jobs already. They were getting into heavy things like the pornography thing, like I mentioned in the podcast. Kids were watching that at a very early age, and it was very normalized. Kids in Venezuela grow faster. They grow a lot faster. So when I became a deacon, I remember I liked that because I felt like in the young men's, kids were a little more of a little older than what I was used to, But yeah, I became a deacon, and then 2 years later, at the age of 14, we moved to Canada.
Well, one thing when they made you a deacon, when they did they tell you that you now have more authority from God than the Pope does?
Not to the extent of the Pope, but they did tell me I have the priesthood. I do remember that they told me I had power, a power to do things. I wasn't really computing that. I didn't know what it meant. My dad never really gave me a blessing, I just didn't understand it. Like, again, it was just on Sundays, These things were enforced once a week, and it will go on my ear and then go to the other side. Like, cool, this is a Sunday thing. Um, I I just had this thing. It was like an advancement. This is something I mentioned to you before we went live. I was going to a Catholic school, and I did the first communion while I was still a Mormon. And the reason why I did that is because it was a requirement of the Catholic school that if I wanted to stay in the school, I needed to do this. So I remember memorizing the Catholic prayers and going through this whole entire ceremony as a Mormon, and did all of that. So I think I was more of a Catholic in Venezuela than Mormonism, because I was going Monday to Friday to a Catholic school, you know. And then the church will come on Sundays and it will be great, but I didn't know how serious he was.
Right.
Not at all until my journey to Canada.
Right. We're going to talk about life lessons learned from sports. And
Yeah.
tell us about what type of sports you did in Venezuela. Did you do baseball and soccer and anything else?
Baseball.
Just baseball.
Just baseball. Since I was 5 years old, I fell in love with baseball. It's practically the sport that Venezuelans play, and I start playing on the daily. And there's no winter there, so it was January till November, and then you'll have December because of Christmas, and then you'll back at it in January again. And we're not talking about once a week. It was like practice on Mondays, and you have a game on Wednesdays, and practice on Thursdays, and you have a game on the weekend. It was constant, and I loved it. I loved it because I love playing baseball.
And were the Major League Baseball players like national heroes that were in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like my idol, Andres Galarraga, was my idol. Bob Abreu, Omar Vizquel, these guys were heroes to me. My favorite team in Venezuela, Leones del Caracas Lions. Now I remember watching the games. It's almost like a religion. Baseball is like a religion in Venezuela. So yeah, I loved it. I loved that environment. It was so much fun, and yeah, playing all the time was definitely fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you got year-round baseball just about. And so, but at school, did you guys play soccer and other things?
They have extracurriculars. The only sport that caught my attention was basketball, and I used basketball as another way of me to keep in shape, and also I used it as a means to get better at baseball. So I played basketball for the school team just for a couple of years. But besides that, the extracurriculars, yeah, they have a soccer league, but they didn't really call my attention until much later when, I love soccer but can't play it.
Did your dad ever coach baseball, or was he kind of too busy?
No, he was too busy. My dad, I barely saw my dad besides weekends. Like I told people on the podcast, I had to learn to walk myself to school because my parents were incredibly busy. So I will walk myself to school, and I would not see my parents till 6 or 7 at night. And then by the time they came home, they were exhausted, and I went to bed, and rinse and repeat for years and years until weekends when I kind of saw them a little more often, but not really.
You ever play catch with your dad?
Oh, yeah. My dad was the first person that I remember growing up. Once he saw that I was interested, he actually committed himself to teach me to play and to help me get better. And once I made the team, the coaches took over. But then my dad also was that type of person that my dad is a dreamer. He looked like,
he looks to the future.
yeah, he looks at me and it's like he can see that if I take this seriously, that it can go somewhere. Um, he does that still till today. He does that. He sees certain things in me. Hey, maybe if you do this, you could do that. He sees talent within my own children as well, the same way he saw it with me. If he sees something positive with my son Max, for example, like, oh, you should probably think about that because there's money in it. Like my daughter Emmy is excellent at art, and my dad's like, well, maybe she could do something with that. He's always very good at seeing something and just like, maybe you should push for this and all that, which is something that kind of broke my dad's heart later on in life when my Mormonism went up, and kind of like he took my Mormonism as he saw it as like he stole my baseball dream,
Right.
essentially. We'll talk about that a little later, but yeah,
Yeah.
my dad always saw past what you thought. Like, he always gave me more value than I gave myself, you know?
Right. And his looking to the future was how you guys ended up in Canada, partly, right?
Yeah, like he's a very smart man. Like, my dad has the ability to see things that sends a signal to his brain that this might go sideways if we don't pay attention to that. When Chavez was running for president, this guy is a guy that loves military power. He stated a coup in the 90s that overthrew the government of Venezuela for a little bit, and he got arrested. And his constant travels to Utah, meaning not Utah, sorry, Cuba, meeting with Fidel Castro and all that. He knew that what he was doing was something that was military power. Never went well with my dad in that regard. So when he started running for president, he started to feel like he's gonna bring something different that actually might be bad for the country. And then he started giving speeches about nationalizing businesses. And my dad has a merchandising business. He depends on international goods to sell. And if that happens, he's practically shutting my dad in the foot. So in 96, my dad started to talk with an uncle that was up in Canada about potentially moving. But again, you
Just
know,
laying down the thoughts and plans.
yeah, he
For,
just put the plan together, but never pulled the trigger till later, till 2001, when Chavez was well into power and things started to move faster and faster with how things in Venezuela were changing. And I mean, even then, our situation of moving drastically, we were planning on moving. But what happened to us, when I mentioned in the podcast, my dad was selling the house, and a bunch of armed men were waiting for him at the house he was selling, ready to kill him. And that was a single event that, instead of normally moving, pushed us out of the window quicker, you know? And, but it was because of my dad that we were able to get here, taking a risk. Like, we left everything behind, Gene. Like, we left money, we left property. We just traveled with our backpacks, and up we went and took a risk. And it was really difficult,
and
really
it's
difficult.
something when you guys left, you were just thinking, oh, this is an adventure, or this is taking me
Yeah,
away from my
like
friend. But
they
now that you
kept
look back at it, you could see what an amazing thing it was for your dad to do.
they kept me in the dark to protect me. Um, I had a lot of friends in Venezuela. I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye to any of my friends. I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to my cousins that lived there at the time. They were just trying to protect me when we so drastically took off. And once they broke the news to me, um, at first I looked at it as hey, I had dreams about North America. I watched movies about North America, and it seemed like a beautiful place. So I got excited about the prospects of exporting a different country. But once you come into the realization that, oh, we came with nothing, and we're refugees, and we're in a refugee camp waiting to cross the country. We don't speak English, and we cross the border, and that's when you start realizing that, oh my God, there is so much to build here. And I start seeing my parents just hyper focusing of what they need to do to stay. And yeah, I'm on. Besides me departing the church, that what happened moving to Canada was one of the most difficult things that we have ever done as a family. And I gotta be grateful for my dad, because he really took a risk here. You
In
know,
a way, you guys were like the pioneers that left Nauvoo, right?
yeah, like
Same type of thing.
we
Just
just blindly left. Like, we need to take off, and my dad just wanted to protect me and protect my mom. And I'm grateful he did that. Oh, 100%. I miss my culture and my upbringing, but I can never deny that this was the best thing for us. That's for sure.
And
Yeah.
so you get to Canada, and it takes a little while to become citizens or to get
Yeah, like
official status.
we came to Canada in 2001, and we got here a month after 9/11. So you know that 9/11 screw up traveling for everybody, and also the immigration process. The borders got tightened, and also the immigration process in Canada slowed down drastically because now you have a huge influx of immigrants now coming into Canada due to the attacks of 9/11, but also the people that are here processing their papers to stay. Everything just slowed down.
Right.
Very, 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 very slow process. It's
Same
supposed to
amount of
be quick.
workers, same amount of workers, but twice as much work to do.
Yeah, and I remember meeting with the lawyers, with my parents and the legal aid team, and they're telling us, hey, we don't know when you're going to be able to have your hearing to stay in the country. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. And prophetic words, because we were here in 2001 and we didn't become citizens since 2006. That's a good 5 years of not knowing whether we are staying or we're going to be deported. So, yeah, it was very difficult. Very difficult.
So when you got to Canada, you don't speak the language, so you're going to school. What was that like?
Well, at first it was great because I met a great group of friends. When I crossed the border, I was able to meet a guy. I mentioned him in the podcast, Nick. I became really good friends with him, and he certainly kind of collectively replaced all my friends from Venezuela in regards of emotion, because I, realized, hey, I didn't say goodbye to my friends, but then Nick became like a brother to me at the time. And when we crossed the border, we realized that the town that we moved in, Welland, was kind of like an immigration border town, and a lot of immigrants were there. And then I was able to meet all these groups of people from Argentina, Colombia, Sudan, Somalia, Africa, all these people that all of a sudden I felt like we were in the same situation. So I was able to build a beautiful community with them when I didn't feel vulnerable. Um, and so it was easy in that regard, but then at the same time, it was incredibly difficult because I had to go to school and I had to learn things in a different language. And then I had to go to ESL, and that was very difficult too. Um, but I was grateful that I had that group of friends at the time that helped me feel that I could do this. I can move forward with the challenges because we were all going through it together. That's how it felt like. We're all doing
Band of
this together.
brothers.
What?
You were like a band of brothers that were going
Yeah,
through.
it felt like a family. It felt like a big family. We had this place in Welland, the multicultural center, and we will meet there constantly. And it felt like a big, big community going through the same thing. So I am grateful, which is something that kind of hurts a little bit because, essentially I tried to replace this wonderful community with Mormonism a little later, but they literally just came. They are exactly what I needed to get me started in Canada. That's for sure.
How old were you when you started going back to church?
Well, I went to church right away. Like
You still
we
went to
we
church, because that's
yeah,
one
we
thing, is like going to church is also, like you mentioned earlier, it was a
yeah,
layer of community that you could go anywhere
yeah.
in the world and you could be
And again,
welcome.
like like I mentioned at the podcast in Mormon Stories, is that we come to Canada and Mormonism is right away. It's something that we go to and we find community there right away. And I don't regret that part of Mormonism at all. The Welland people, they generally, till this day, I have felt their love. And they received me with that love when I first came in. I mentioned in the bishop at the time was an incredible man, still an incredible man. He's still alive, but he was an incredible man, an incredible leader. The young men's program, they were full of people that till today I consider them brothers to me. They are essentially brothers to me. And my Mormonism experience in Welland was also something that I welcome very much. And then the two groups the cultural group and the Mormon group together at the time were very beneficial to me into my early years in Canada. Um,
Did you
my
do?
Mormonism. Sorry, what?
Did they do scouting, or did you do
Yeah, they did.
youth
I
sport?
wasn't really into scouts, but they did have the young men's program, and they will have activities. And once I became friends with the guys from Welland, and realized that I liked those guys a lot, I started to go to young men's. I started to do activities with them, and I also realized that these guys not only get together for activities, but they are also friends that get together outside of church. Because I remember hanging out with the Burdens, the Medwins, the Glanfields outside of church, hanging out with them all the time. And it almost at that time, I didn't really connected them as my Mormon friends. They were just another layer of community, and I liked them a lot enough for me to invest outside of church. And my friend Andrew, who just came to visit about a week ago, he was here and we were talking about this, how he just randomly came over to my house with two other friends, Dave and Dan. Uh, they took a whole day to come and hang out with me. They don't know Spanish. I don't know English. But then Andrew told me that we didn't need the language to understand that there was already a chemistry there, that we enjoyed each other's company so much. So I love that. You know, Besides everything that happened with me in the church, I would never connect that first experience of Mormonism on the other side. Oh, bad, bad, bad. I will still say that that was the best part of my upbringing was actually that Mormonism in Welland that essentially was, again, a blessing to me at the time, just like the other group of people from the other countries as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so did you look for a baseball team to join?
Yeah, the Welling Mustangs. I play with them right away. Enjoy it. I realized that baseball was easier in Canada. But then I realized also that it's not like in Venezuela that it's a whole year-round thing. Obviously, winter hits here; it's only a summer thing. So that's when my interest in baseball started to decline because I'm not playing it all year round.
Mm-hmm.
But it's every summer. Yeah, I will play with the Welland Mustangs and enjoy the summer. But again, it just kind of became more of a fun thing, and it wasn't as serious anymore. And also, my parents disconnected too from that because their entire energy is focused on working and putting the case together to stay in Canada. But yeah,
So you played third base mostly
no, I
back
actually
then?
play first base
Okay.
in Canada. Um, it was the only position that was available when I joined the Mustangs. Even when I was trying to tell those guys, like, oh, I could probably play better third base than your guy over there, brother. Like I've been doing this all year round. But then again, they put me at first base. Obviously, succeeded there very well
Did you get a first
until
baseman's
they
mitt?
realized that give me a chance at third. And then the year later they did. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you are a third baseman.
All right. So did you buy a first baseman's mitt?
Yep, I had a first baseman Smith, and then I think I only played first base for a couple years, and then I transitioned to third base right after. So
And so when you mentioned, I can't remember if we talked about it yet, but you mentioned at some point prior that your dad would tell you to work on your skills,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Uh,
So you changed positions. What types of things did you do to work on your skills to play a better first baseman?
well, I want to come across as arrogant, but if you're a baseball player, man, you come with the skills. um, Playing baseball in Venezuela all year round and coming and changing positions. Yeah, there was a learning curve, but when you have that DNA of a sport you like and you'll pick it up quickly. I bought a first baseman Smith, and I think it took me a couple of weeks to really get the scope of things and to get acquaintance with that. My biggest struggle was the pickup play. You know, somebody throws on the ground, I had to pick it up. Uh, but I already came from third base and I already made those plays. But plays that you make in a different angle. You come from,
right. It's different
you
off
come
the
from
bat.
running instead of being idle and waiting for the pickup, right? So that was the hardest thing I had to learn. But 2 weeks, of working with one of the coaches for the Welland Mustangs, and also my dad in the afternoons, when he was available, I asked him in our apartment building. I remember I bought this ball, this bouncy ball, and I will ask my dad to like just throw it against the floor, and I'll try to pick it up without a glove. And that helped because if you can catch it with your bare hand, you're going to catch it with a glove.
Right.
And I got
Sharpen
good
your
at it.
reflexes.
I got good at it, and I was a great first baseman. But my position was third. So as soon as I figured that I could go back there, I took my chance right away. So
Yeah. I remember my older brother was a first baseman, and he would want me to throw balls in the dirt
yeah,
to him.
it's easy to catch them on the
It's like
air. Anybody's going
I
to
could,
catch it in the air.
yeah, I could catch this all day long.
Yeah,
I need
like
to work on the bad throws.
exactly. So and that's essentially, you know, and it's crazy because we're talking about this, but it happens in Major League Baseball right now. What's the most devalued position in baseball? Is the first base, because majority of the time they're going to throw the ball accurately at you, okay? And then the rest is just going to be those bounces that you're going to have to learn to man up. So I even had that mentality growing up that, you know, a first baseman is not an easy position, but certainly playing third base, shortstop, and second base is a little more demanding physically. And I kind of wanted to be in the middle of a little more of a challenge. And when I played first base those few years, I felt a little idle that my only play was run to the base and wait for the ball. And that's that. Unless if somebody hits the ball your way and then you make a great play. But I just like the action that playing in any other position brought, because it pushed me to be a better player. I also had that stigma that first base people get out of shape quickly. So
Right. Yeah, the chunky guys.
yeah, the chunky guys play at
First
first base.
first base and catcher sometimes, right?
Yeah. I really hope I'm not offending any first basemen out
That's
there,
right.
but I'm telling you, it's not me. Look at your market in Major League Baseball. You're not getting paid the $500 million that Bryce Harper is paying, or you got a shortstop making $700 million. I mean, Blatty, a guy from my team, Blue Jays, got $500 million, but he's certainly not hitting like $500 million. So
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm not the one offending the first baseman, but the market is.
Right. And did you ever, as a third baseman, try to play mind games with the other team, with the batter? Like when you fake charge a bunt, or you
Yeah.
shift when the pitch is coming. Do you ever do anything like that?
No,
Or were you
I wouldn't. I wouldn't call it mind games. I just no, not really. I kind of reserve that more to the shortstop and the second baseman. I did play, if you call it mind games, I did have a thing with the catcher. That if the guy took too much of a lead, I will give the perception that I was a little too far off the bag. And I
right?
remember I would go between innings and I will talk to the catcher at the time, like, hey, this guy's taking a too much of a lead. If you ever get a chance, then we'll create a signal. And I remember when I played for Oak Ridge, this is the second team I play for, I will make a signal to the catcher at the time. I will look at it and say something in Spanish, because that nobody's going to understand what I'm saying. But my catcher knew the word. And I remember we tried those type of plays, and we found some success. It was actually kind of cool. If that's what mind games were, yeah. But that's about the action I got. It's got to be between you and the catcher. Maybe the pitcher pickup, but those rarely happen. So yeah.
That's right. And we'll let people go back to the your Mormon Stories episode. I'll have a link in the description.
Yeah.
And they can learn more about the process that you went through to go on a mission.
Yeah.
You kind of would quick draw to go on a mission, and then I remember you saying that you appeared at the mission training center with long hair, and everybody's like, "Who's this guy?" Right? It's almost like you were showing up as a new convert and saying, "Hey, I
When
want to go
you're
on a
ill
mission."
prepared, brother, when you're ill prepared, Gene, we had a huge party at my house after I was set apart. And I'm going to blame all my Mormon friends that were at that party. They knew I was set apart, and nobody said a word to me that what I was doing was wrong. I had girls hugging me. I had girls kissing me in the cheek. We had music blasting. It was a party. I was leaving on
That's
a
right.
mission.
You were
We
just
were
doing your
celebrating,
culture.
and I was set apart already. Nobody said anything. That when you got set apart, you're a missionary. Nobody said a word. I went to see Transformers, that the first one. I went on a Sunday because I knew I was leaving on a Monday. I'm not going to be able to see it again. Went and watched Transformers on a Sunday with a bunch of active friends. And up I went the next day and I took a plane. And again, I was overeating. I was wearing a suit. It's the middle of July. It's terribly hot on that plane. And I had a carry on like, fuck this. I'm going to change, man. Like, I just went and changed. And also, my hair. And there's something I got to clarify. I'm glad I'm talking about this because I didn't have this hair when I went on a mission. My hair was long, but it wasn't like this. It was shaggy. It was puffy. I definitely needed a haircut. But I just remember, why would I get a haircut if I can get one for free? You know? And I remember I showed up at the MTC just because my mentality was I don't have to report till the next day. So in my mind, I thought I'm not a missionary till the next day. I'm just arriving earlier. Okay. That's what I thought. I thought I don't need to wear the suit if I'm reporting the next day. But then they gave me the spiel that once I'm set apart, I'm a missionary. And once they're telling me all these things, I'm thinking, well, I just had a party. If I'm going to be sent home from breaking the rules, man, I broke them like hardcore
That's
3 days
right.
ago.
My bad.
My bad. But yeah, like I did. I show up in shorts. I didn't know I was Elder Halaf at the time. I thought I was still Ben. Again, I'm not putting that together until the next day, you
Right.
know. And it's
Just
when
wasn't part of
you're ill
your.
prepared, man. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the least prepared for anything ever in your life.
No, and I mean, I went on a mission because everybody left.
Right.
I didn't want to be the one guy from the Welland group not leaving because at that time I was kind of connecting everything like, I want to be part of the movement, and
Right.
if I need to go ahead and do this, I'll go ahead and do it. But
Right.
again,
And it
yeah.
cost you a little bit of social capital with your dad and your family
Oh
to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah, we had a huge fight. The day I went to my parents and told them I was going to go on a mission, my dad exploded on me, and my mom was so mad. My dad is like, "What about your education? What about, you going to college early? What about baseball?" Which is at that time I was trying to explain to my dad, Dad, I'm a 20-year-old because I went to all my mission late. That I wasn't even I was 20. I was explaining to my dad, Dad, if I'm
You're
not in
past the
major leagues right
prime.
now, I'm certainly not going to be in major leagues now at 20. So I'm trying to explain it to
Right.
him, but he just lost it because now we're talking about me being serious about Mormonism, and all of a sudden now leaving for 2 years. This is a big deal. And that's the very first indication of how against it they were towards everything that I thought, well, I think I'm doing the right thing here. I'm
Right. Because
serving.
your dad is thinking about your future.
Yeah, he's thinking
He's
about college. He's thinking about my mom saw it as like a lazy way for me to weasel my way out of college. You
right.
know,
It's
uh,
just it's 2 years away from doing the things that are going to make you a man.
that I'm supposed to do, which backfires because all my friends from school graduated on time, went straight to college, and these guys got a leg up and got careers going. By the time I came home from my mission, I felt like I was still wearing diapers, man.
You're like a
So
grandpa wearing diapers.
yeah, and so yeah, my parents really exploded. We talked about that the other day, like how my parents, like, oh man, you guys knew this crap way too early, and I was just blocked.
Right. And you
Yeah.
were and your mentality was all my friends that are going on missions, they're doing things, they're committing themselves to this church, this movement, and
Yeah.
you got to do your part too. But
Yeah.
you were overly focused on that instead of getting the messages from your parents.
Yeah, and again, it was more of a seeing. seeing with my own eyes, like these are great guys leaving on missions, doing the right thing. I'm seeing their validation through their families. Their families are happy that they're leaving. The blessings are coming, and it's all a unification of this group thing. Because I remember before we decided to go on missions, we had this big hangout with all of our friends, and we collectively, all of us at the same time, decided, let's go serve. Let's put our papers together. It was more of a social, awesome thing that we did. When we decided to go on missions, we all decided, okay, let's work on our papers together, and boom, let's get this ball rolling.
And that's
And again,
actually
yeah,
that's actually part of what of this episode is not just baseball, but team
yeah,
skills. And so you
100%.
guys decided to go like as a team almost,
Yeah, it was.
a group,
It
a
was
community.
Facebook was at its infancy at the time, and I remember we created a group called the group was called God's Army from Canada, and we created this group, and it was essentially a group of all of us leaving. So it wasn't, and you're right, 100%. It was more of a team decision when we all decided to do this. But then, unfortunately, my parents didn't want to play ball with me at the time. And
Right.
they
They
did not
weren't on
want
the
me to do it.
team, not on the same page for
Yeah,
that
and
team.
that's when things kind of a little starting to go a little weird with my parents, because if I'm seeing other family members being so supportive and hearing things like God wants you to go, this is the right thing to do. You're going to go out there and save people and show them the true gospel. And I see my two parents super pissed about this decision. My mind is starting to connect the dots. Like, maybe my parents are not as good as I think they are.
Mhm.
Maybe they just, are not as God loving. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. And so, but that is interesting. You talk about how the Facebook group. Um, I, being much older, heard about Facebook because of Stanford football. So
Yeah,
I was part of the sideline crew, the chains. I hold the chains at Stanford football games back then.
yeah,
And Stanford was not doing very well year after year in the early 2000s. They went through a couple of coaches. And then all of a sudden I saw an article in the paper in like 2008 or 9, I can't remember what year. And it said that the group of incoming freshmen used Facebook to talk to each other. And they
yeah.
got offers to go to Alabama, Ohio State,
Mm.
Miami. And they said, hey, let's all go to Stanford and we can go to those other places and we'll just be one guy. But if we go as a team, right, if we go together, we can make an impact on Stanford, right?
Yeah.
3 years later, they're in the Orange Bowl.
Isn't
So,
that the way everything happens with sports, man? You
yeah.
know,
And
that
so a group of
that
people
happens
sticking
to me a
together.
lot here with my team.
Yeah. And so that's a good example of how teamwork can affect our lives.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and you know, um, and again, it did feel like a team effort. Like I truly felt like part of this movement. It felt really good. I'm not gonna lie. Like getting together and getting ready together, and start seeing us leaving one by one. And all of a sudden, when I was next in line, the celebration that everybody went through to send me off was, yeah, man, it was awesome.
Yeah. And so then, we can talk, people can go to see your Mormon stories about, you know, you're coming back, or your mission stories and coming back and
Yeah,
getting married and things. And now we'll go to just sort of the topic of that I wanted to talk about is how sports relate to life, and also how sayings that your dad would tell you were impactful, right?
yeah,
And so how life lessons can come from different places, we'll say.
yeah.
So what things do you think are the most important that life building skills as far for that baseball sort of inspires?
Well, passion. I probably can mention passion right away. I think at an early age, learning to be passionate about something, and something that can get you out of bed to get better at. It's something really healthy that, I wish the younger generation would kind of fix something like a little that they're passionate about, that they're something that they're driving them. Baseball to me did that because, I learned that I learned something about myself in the very beginning of life, that if I were to take something seriously, I can, I'll have fun with it, but then all of a sudden I'm good at it, which creates another realm of things in your brain. Like, oh, I'm good at it, so you're confident, all these things. You know, Baseball was the first feelings that I have that I am confident about doing something and doing something difficult, because baseball is not an easy sport. You know, whoever comes at me and tell, oh, baseball is easy, just hit the ball and run, you're full of shit. It's hard. This is a hard sport. So me learning it, learning to hit, learning to throw, learning to catch. I remember learning to catch. How many times I missed the ball and how many times I got hit in the head or in the body. Because once my dad became my trainer, he wanted me to learn it, and he would put me through the ringer to even at a young age, he drilled to me to get better because he knew I wanted to do it. So
Right.
it's not easy. But
Perseverance.
yeah, and it was, and also taught me a lot about working hard and rewarding from that hard work. Because I didn't play baseball in a team right away. I wanted to learn and then go on a team and perform in a team. And then seeing all that hard work paying off, and realizing that you're part of a group of guys and you might be one of the best players in the team. Because that's the thing that I took pride on. And like, I worked so hard that I was among the best players in the team at the time. And he taught me a lot of things. And one of them being passion, but it's also started to develop confidence that I can get things done, especially
Yeah.
difficult things like a sport. So yeah.
I remember confidence coming up a couple times in your Mormon story thing, where your dad at some point saw that you didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
And he was saying, where did your confidence go?
Yeah. Well, again, I wish I could have I have footage of my past life, because the footage of my past life eventually comes from stories from my parents and my friends from Venezuela at the time. Um, I've been able to keep in contact with these friends from Venezuela, and hearing stories that when I was an active Mormon, I felt like, how did I do that then, but I cannot do this now? When my dad mentioned the confidence thing, he knew that when I played baseball, especially, I was one of those guys that was cheering the team up, that was vocal about, the things that we needed to do. I took roles of, being a
Leadership.
leader in the team, leadership. And then also when, like I was mentioning in Mormon Stories, you start liking girls a lot earlier, you know. Uh, I remember my first crush, I was about 9 years old, and I was confident enough to go tell that girl, like, yeah, I like you. You're pretty good. You're pretty good looking girl. All these things, my parents saw how I behave as a kid, all the way until I was maybe 17 years old, when Mormonism just hijacked my brain and I started becoming more and more entrenched into the culture of Mormonism. But man, like, the confidence aspect of it was a big blow to my parents, because when I started to behave as a member of the church and they started realizing that a lot of that was starting to diminish, that's the first thing my dad like always bring up, like, you could do this and could do that, and I always said, no, I cannot do it, and I cannot do it. And my dad's like, what are you talking about? Because he wasn't used to that, right? He wasn't used to that low level confidence kid. So yeah, my dad really, really got hurt by that one. My level of decline it was pretty fast. That's why I feel like I wish I could watch a movie about my past self, so that I could just, like, how do I go back in time and keep this kid the same way he is, so that he can have a better grip at life later,
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember that sort of tying it in, like you say, um, doing something you're passionate about, developing skills, getting recognition from your peers that you're doing something good,
Yeah.
which in a way you're setting a leadership example in the way you go about your business, and then you can take off from there and become vocal and be a leader vocally, and tell your fellow teammates, hey, we can all do this if we put our minds to it, or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because a late inning rally, right? Somebody needs to tell the team we can do this, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy you mentioned that, because while we're staying in the topic of confidence, I had that when I was in the baseball field. Even when I was an active Mormon, that confidence will return because I was confident in what I could do on the field. When I played for the Welland Mustangs and the Oak Ridge Reds, when I played for the Barons, all these teams, every time I participated in all those group efforts, I knew I had a voice because I knew that my teammates knew he knows what he's doing because he's a good player. And that's why that meetup last year in 2024 with my baseball friends for the first time in so long, and realizing that they're telling stories about me on the field and things I
Well, like
did.
20
It's like,
years. It was like 20 years earlier that
yeah,
the group that you're talking about, or maybe
yeah,
even
like
longer.
when I met my group of friends um, during Christmas, yeah, December 2024, we met up. That was the first time that I have connected with those guys in so long. And because once my journey out of the church begins, my brain returns to past life decisions of things I've done. What are the things I lost? Who did I offend? Who did I push away? Where are the group of friends that were not Mormon that I could connect with? And this was all done by my wife, Justine. Justine, there'll be days where I sat down like, how do I do this? How do I move forward? And she's like, call your baseball friends from back in the day. Like, oh, why would I do that? I haven't talked to them in so long. As soon as I picked up the phone and talked to one of them, it's like I talked to them 2 days ago. Like, oh yeah, Ben, dude, let's get together. When they found out I could drink now, they were like, "Oh my God, let's go have a drink and we could talk." And that initial meeting snapped my brain again to realize that these guys know me in a different level. They know me as a person with leadership, a person with confidence, which
High
is while I
skills.
was a Mormon, I didn't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're enforcing things that they've seen before that my friends from Venezuela have seen as well, and my friends from the early days in Welland. And I just had to rehear those things again to realize I was a great, confident dude.
You were like a neighborhood legend almost.
Yeah, it's like, hearing those stories was also kind of like, man, did I miss that reinforcement? I missed it. It's good to feel a validation. This is something I mentioned in the podcast, and it came across a little bit of a maybe resentful, but kind of want to clear the water here that um, for me, okay, I'm a person that likes, and this has always been me, but it's always been suppressed. When I play baseball, I had the mentality that, hey, if I take it seriously, I could perform well and I could be a good player. I want to be a good player. I don't want to be just a player. I want to be a good player. Okay. I want to be able to have my teammates look at me and realize if we have bases loaded and Ben gets on deck, we trust that he can get the job done. I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that if I'm in the workplace and something happens, let's rely on Ben because he knows what he's doing. You know. So when I went on a mission, naturally, I wanted to feel like if I'm a good missionary, I'll get those callings, like district leader, the zone leader, all these things that validate my efforts. Sadly, Mormonism wasn't giving me those validations that I kind of got used to when I was in these high confident level themes that I was doing. And so when I went on Mormon Stories, what I was trying to say was, in humanity, there is nothing wrong with just trying to be a better version that you could be.
Whatever
Otherwise,
you do.
life would be meaningless if you're doing something and you just, yeah, I'm comfortable here and I don't want to go any further. And I know that works for people, and that's fine, to each their own. But my dad is a dreamer and I got that gene in me. You know, I also want to be a dreamer and I also want to succeed in the things I'm doing the best of my ability. And if there's more room for improvement, why not do it? I used to work for a guy that told me this. I want you guys to be 9 out of 10 perfect. And I will ask him, why don't you want us to be 10 out of 10? because then there's no room for improvement anymore. I want constant improvement. If you're 10 out of 10, there's no room for you to keep succeeding. There's gotta be always something better that we could do. That's the message here. And that is essentially my biggest destructive force within me as a Mormon, is that little by little, I wasn't able to full force just explode with my full potential, what I can give the world.
That's right. Once you become a 10, you can't progress anymore.
Exactly. And that is with baseball and everything you do, any sport you play, you have
Always
to
trying
have
to
a
get
level of
better.
desire to perform well. Otherwise, why are you playing? Oh, there is no such thing as, oh, yeah, oh, I'm playing for fun. Yo, that's good. That's good you're playing for fun. But you gotta got that grip, man. The grip of succeeding needs to be there in life as a whole. Otherwise, you just become stagnant, and the world is full of possibilities. You can't be stagnant.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
yes, sports gives us lessons like that. I remember on your Mormon stories quite a few times you talked about like how wise your father was, different sayings he had. One thing that stands out to my mind is the liars are thieves. What does liars are thieves mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Um, in Venezuela, you get spanked, man. Uh, Obviously, here in Canada, you hit a child and the cops come and you're gone. But in Venezuela, my dad would hit me with a belt. Uh, he would instill that discipline because that's culture. His dad did it. I don't hate my dad. I love my dad, and I understand why, and that's cultural. But my dad always taught me that those are one of the cardinal sins in the family. Lying leads to punishment right away. You know, and the reason why he told me that liars are thieves is because once you lie, you lose credibility right away. It's over. Okay. And he told me that the best thing that you can always do, even if he bites you in the ass, is to be forward and tell the truth. Okay. And I remember when I was younger, I will sometimes lie about things in school that happened. Oh yeah, Dad, I wrote a test. Oh, they haven't given it back to me, Dad. I don't know what happened. And then 2 weeks later, he'll find out that I had my test. I was hiding my test in the locker because I was afraid of the bad mark. And my dad didn't punish me because I did that. He punished me because I didn't tell him the truth. That's exactly what it was. I don't like liars. Liars are thieves. And so for me, okay, essentially, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm nothing near perfect, Gene. I'm like far, far off. I have lied before. I'm not here claiming that it's for some power that I am the perfect identity to talk about this. But when that's in your mind, for an organization that demands honesty and so much out of you, you like to think that they'll get that in return. So once I start figuring things out, the first thing that came to my mind was my dad telling me this, like, liars are thieves. And once you lie, you lose credibility. Yeah, this is something that happens in marriages too. Um, you know, I read a biography. I love Van Halen, right here, baby. Van Halen. I love that band. I love Sammy Hagar. I love that. And a lot of people are going to be here. No, David Lee Roth is better. No, I like Sammy. And in his biography, Sammy talks about the period of time when he was in Montrose, and then he became a solo artist, and then he joined Van Halen. And most of that lifespan, Sammy Hagar was, living the rock star life, even when he was married. And he destroyed his first marriage. And ever since that moment, he said, I will never lie because it destroys lives. Ever since that moment, he said, I'm not going to lie. And he was able to remarry his new wife, and his life is just being based on honesty. And to me, that was something that was the first breach of me
Trust.
feeling deceived, distrust.
Mhm.
to me, another type of person that sit and be like, oh, why did he do this? Oh, this stuff, that. No, once I start finding things out about the church, it was over right from the get-go. It wasn't like, I was sad 100%, but I'm not a person that is going to bend backwards to try to explain something that is so obviously wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a lot of the life lessons my dad taught me that I dismissed while I was a Mormon, these life lessons come back, rush like you wouldn't believe. Because keep in mind, and again, if you watch the podcast, my parents' teachings were destroyed by the teachings of Mormonism. The stuff that they taught me, all of a sudden, Mormonism took a turn, and I realized, oh shit. So does that mean that whatever I learned with my parents is wrong? And they've been teaching me wrong this whole time. And now that I'm on the other side, my God, they were on the ball on that, So a lot of people, especially some people that know me here, are like, oh, Ben, you dismiss the church so quickly. No, it's about honesty. If the church is willing to excommunicate people for speaking truth, like, what did John Lane got excommunicated for? The man went out there and spoke truth, man. What the hell? Like, so if the church does that, why would I bend backwards to try to defend something that is actually flat out? It looks like, hey man, it looks like it was like this,
That's right. And if you're basing your life, if you're doing things based on a lie or other people's lies,
Yeah,
they're stealing your time, they're stealing your money.
10% is a lot. Let's talk about the financial aspect. 10% is a lot of money that you pay the church, And if I lie or make a mistake, oh boom, brother, you have to sit with that bishop and you have to confess and feel like shit afterwards. They're asking you to move mountains and honesty, all these things. Why can you do the same thing? I may add. Why are you kicking people out for essentially the same things that are in your gospel topic essays?
And why are you being dishonest in your finances with the SEC scandal and some other things?
My parents have no idea who John Dehlin is. When I send him the link, my parents like, oh, this guy looks sketchy. Well, you're going all the way to Utah. All these things. What are you doing, man? Like, this could be a scam. They're telling me all these things because my parents are super skeptical people. They even thought that John Dehlin's podcast was made by AI. Like, I remember my dad was like, hey, everything AI is taking control. You sure this is the guy? But the point I'm trying to make is that once I sat down and started listening to John Dehlin and then started listening to the truth claims and I'm showing my parents the truth claims and when he came from and all that stuff, my parents, the most shocked they were is when I told them, did you know that he got kicked out of church? Because my parents say, wait a minute, why did he get kicked out? Oh, because he's bringing all these things. Yeah, but these are the same things that the church are saying. Exactly. So that to me right there is malbehavior for wanting to be honest. Essentially, you're being punished for being honest.
That's right. And liars are thieves, if you think about it.
And liars are thieves. Why are you lying and you're getting so offended by the stuff that we are finding out and you're taking an attacking stance on the person that is essentially bringing this to light?
That's right. Con artists are deceptive in order to get your money. So
exactly.
If the church is being deceptive to get your money, to get your time, then what's the difference between that and the con artist?
Exactly. And that, like, I don't, because I want to start evolving in life. Once I went to Mormon Stories, I remember walking away and getting to the hotel and Justine asked me, how do you feel? And I felt like, I think I'm ready to move forward now. But now I'm here with you and I see the comments on the YouTube channel after going in and calling, and my parents asking me questions now because they're deconstructing it after so long, and seeing the ripple effect that causes people, and having people that were hiding, that they couldn't leave the church, and all of a sudden they see me, oh man, now I do this for the purpose. Like, if I can help you get the stones to do this, I will help you. I will go in any podcast right now, and that will be what I can do now to help people out. and I'm trying to move away from this phase of anger. But man, I feel disrespected, and every day I do good. Sometimes I do good, sometimes I don't. I'm a human
Right.
being. I'm not a robot.
Right. But you're basically telling your wife, you're going to take the lead. You're going to take charge. You're going to do things as a leader and try to give
We
out more information to people.
we discussed that yesterday. After you contacted me last week, my wife Justine called me yesterday, like, hey, maybe because of the outcome, like the outcome that we have on this podcast is just behind the scenes, the amount of messages that we had gotten from people that like needed the extra encouragement to finally take the step. For me, I look at it like maybe we should do this just to help others, not necessarily to go out there with a shotgun and start shooting the message of the church and start ranting on that, because that's not the positive way to do it, but just to sit down and vent about exactly what is truly wrong with us and why we feel this way. When you contacted me about baseball and all that, I just kept thinking, you know, how much can I talk about this when also church kind of hijacked that passion of mine for so long, and now I'm reliving it. Every time I get on the field, I'm restarting those feelings again that I once had. you know it's a level of reconstruction of a past me that always existed. And I went to therapy realizing that Mormonism was never me. It was just what I created to survive where I
Yeah.
was at the time. This
That's
is
one
me.
thing. You were authentic, and then you changed your authenticity to
Yeah.
do the Mormon things.
Yeah.
Now
And
you're reliving your authenticity. So for me, when I was 60, I was trying to figure out who my authentic person was.
yeah, it doesn't exist until you let it. When I went to therapy after a few sessions, um, my therapist flat out told me, I'm have because my therapist they've seen Mormons before. She has seen members that come to her, and she told me there's a big problem here. Um, she said your wife grew up in the church. You didn't. There's a big problem there, and the problem is that your wife has a level of tolerancy for what people are going through in the church. For you, however, you didn't grow up in the church, and you were once in one spectrum, and then all of a sudden you went to the spectrum, and all of a sudden you went to the other spectrum and back to the spectrum again. All these changes.
Yeah, you
So
just
what
turned on a dime each time.
so what happened was that once I started evolving out, my therapist told me you need to keep evolving and protect yourself, because there's going to be times where maybe you hear something that might hit your wife differently, and your wife might be fine, but you might not, because now your brain is going back to logic and to that same level of mentality that you didn't have to do mental gymnastics when you were younger. You didn't have the same enforcement that my wife Justine had. These things I did because, oh, I like my friends. Cool. Awesome. And then I started becoming more and more Mormon until I became in. But then I'm returning back to the same person that once was just him, you know? So when we are talking about authenticity, confidence, the things I did when I played baseball, the sports and discipline and my parents' teachings, these are things that always existed, but they were just stomped down for so long that once you start digging out, you go into this angry rant about your life because the opportunities miss and things that happen all the time, you know? So I just, I'm trying to figure myself out. Um, and it's going to take a while. This helps. When going to Mormon Stories certainly helps, but has been a kick ass experience. Yeah, this is brutal. This is absolutely brutal. At least personally for me, I've just been terrible.
Yeah, I remember as I started deconstructing, we'll say once John Dehlin got excommunicated, I still had things that I liked about church. I had things that I was questioning, but I was keeping it all inside, and it was kind of tough to keep it inside, right?
Yeah.
And so about 3.5 years ago, I met an author, talked to him about stuff, and then I went to Mormon History Association, and I went to Sunstone, and I was able to, find my voice, and being able to express yourself is a freeing thing. It's something that can help you instead of bottling it up inside and being frustrated. It's cathartic. It's a way of recovering from what's going on.
If you don't say, if you don't express yourself, you are not doing yourself any favors. I don't understand. Again, I don't understand how people, not just in the denomination of Mormonism, but as a whole, can just not really express themselves wholeheartedly to who they are as human beings. You know, my one of my biggest beefs with everything that had happened to me against my self-consciousness is the LGBTQ thing was a huge thing. Like, man, I don't want to play God here, but I highly doubt that God creates broken goods and sends them to earth to create a hypothetical cure of the broken good he created. That to me, that's what the LGBTQ community is in Mormonism. Why will God create beautiful people that are broken and send them to the earthly experience to create a cure only through the gospel? And I look at it like, that sounds like bullshit, you know, because, and that's something, again, my parents taught me is that people are people, man. Let people be people, you know, who cares? Who cares what people do? If they're good to you, that's all it matters. That's all I want from people is just be good. Okay? And worry about yourself too. You know, like if you feel comfortable doing your own thing, do your own thing. But also just have that mindset that whatever people do, if it's not affecting you directly, who cares? You know, and that's is why with all these things that happen, that causes me grief is just explaining things that shouldn't even be explained because they just don't make sense, you know. um i I just want to be able to just tell people, hey man, it doesn't have to be like this, you know. It doesn't have to be ex-Mormons, doesn't have to be Mormon, just be people, you know. Like because I tell my wife Justine this, that Mormons are one thing, but ex-Mormons are another. You know, we're talking about two things that are equally as toxic when you let it. Ex-Mormonism is a tag. Ex-Mormonism is what we are when we leave. But what we create is what defines the toxicity that could also be as defined as toxic as the Mormon Church. um, we have to explain these things to people because generally we come from a place where we have felt deceived and lied to. That's a normal feeling.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of
And
people are talking about someday we could be ex Mormons and not worry about the Mormon or ex Mormon thing and just live our lives.
just separate people from the tagline. You know how many good people are in Mormonism? Tons. People that choose religion, and we can talk about this for 3 more hours, but if somebody's seeking religion, I like to think that they're generally trying to seek something good. Whether that turns negative or toxic, obviously, but people that seek religion, to me, generally want to be good. Whether that's Mormonism, Muslim, Jewish, who cares? They're trying to be good. Okay. The problem is just merging the two, merging the two. And as much as Mormons make that problem with them, with merging the two. Us ex-Mormons do the same thing. Oh, I need to learn to re-love people for who they are, whether they're Mormon or not. That's something I'm working on. Okay. Because I come from a place that I feel like I was lied to. I felt gaslighted. But I also have beautiful people from the Mormon Church that call me and validated me. And they don't have to agree with my thing. You don't have to agree. That's fine. But to pick up the phone and acknowledge me, that, it resonated with them, that's all I need. I also got another phone calls of people just, oh, you're a piece of shit, all these things. I just wish that we can come together and just realize you are my friend because you're fun and I love you. I don't give a shit what you do. I don't care where you go. But unfortunately, that is something that is going to take work, because you blame people like me to being upset. No, we we did so much in the name of truth that this is almost self-healing for us to release, and then eventually we cleanse, and then we move forward, and then we're better human beings. When people tell me that, why don't you leave the church alone? Are you kidding me? We're trying, but this 37 years of thinking you're doing the right thing, 37 years of preaching something that might have been inaccurate. I went on a mission and I taught the wrong thing. That's the way I look at it. The people that joined the church through my message, they joined through the wrong messaging. I feel bad for that. I got no control over it anymore. But, we just need to. I'm going on a rant here.
That's right. We need to all get along, right?
But
And I was thinking the thing that people don't like about, we'll say, people that are similar to the guy that does Thoughtful Faith. I think his name is Jacob Hansen, and there are other people that are called Desnats, Deseret Nation, and they kind of weaponize the scriptures. They kind of weaponize the teachings to try to put other people down. And so maybe some ex-Mormons, the toxic part is when they kind of weaponize history to try to say, oh, look, you're stupid if you don't learn real history. Right?
And that's exactly, you're 100% right, because we can sit down here and agree to disagree, but not to attack someone.
Right.
And this is something that I'm actually have learned recently, talking to people that are active, telling me this. Just because I believe that this is my truth doesn't have to be your truth. And that is a powerful statement, because you go from like, oh, my church is true and you're wrong, blah, 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 versus I understand why and I get it. And now people are acknowledging these things are problematic. These things are problematic. Whether you want to accept them or not, to each their own. But all we want is that, hey, man, we just don't leave the church just because we felt like, it's a Monday, I want to go drink. And that's the fun thing to do.
There's
You
a deeper reason.
leave because it's a process of all of a sudden realizing there is something wrong here. Why do you think the leaders are telling you not to look at things? If a church can stand on its own, they wouldn't even care about blabbering this in conference. Don't look at Google search. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like any smart man on the planet, if you tell a kid, don't touch that, what is the kid going to do? They're going to touch it.
That's right.
They're going to touch the hot item.
That reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz, the original Wizard of Oz, the wizard's being discussed, and he's like, don't pay any attention to that man behind the curtain, right?
If you're telling somebody not to do something, you will ask why. And sadly, it takes a long time for people to finally ask yourselves why. But the wrong thing, and what I'm trying to say is that don't go after the people that are there, because I was once there. I was sitting on that chair. I was defending, but my big beef is not with the London First War people or the Welland War. My beef is with whatever is coming from the top and you're telling these people and you're asking them to defend these things. And the thing that is harder for us, people that step away from the church, is that we know that people are good and they're putting so much trust in these men, and you know that they are not being honest.
In a way, the scriptures even say, don't put your trust in the arm of flesh. And the leaders are people of flesh. They're people that can make mistakes.
It's self-defeating. You look at a lot of those theses. Let's not go too far, okay? Really quick here, because now we're in the subject. I want to discuss it. I like following Nathan Hinckley. As a matter of fact, he just added me to his Facebook account. I like the man. He's like me, but he's American.
And he
I
was a
look
bishop.
at I look at Nathan Hinckley like that dude's like me. He's passionate. I can relate with that dude quite a bit. So he posted on his Facebook account about dialing H hoax and shoulder talk and the walk and pornography thing. You know, I I I see things like that, and I look at it and realize, dude, you are telling women that they are walking pornography. Okay, cool. But now they can show their shoulders. What the hell is going on? Is God drunk? Is he smoking something? Is he confused? Or is God now like, man, we got to be hip now? Shit, might as well start showing shoulders now. So that is the thing that doesn't make sense. I want to know what train of thought was Dowling H. Oaks saying then, and now they're okay to be walking pornography. That's what I said on the, okay, you're good to be walking pornography. Now that's
By walking
exactly,
pornography, you're talking about the secret lives of Mormon wives.
yeah, to me, it's just, this is the stuff that upsets me. My wife went through the ringer when she was younger. She couldn't go to prom because she couldn't afford the Mormon dress from Utah. Because we're here from Ontario. There's no way you're going to walk into a store in Ontario like, can I have an appropriate dress for prom? No. You buy the inappropriate thing and you have to put a thing on, and that's how you go. And Justine didn't want to do that. And if you buy the appropriate dress, that's a lot of money. So she didn't go to prom. And now it's okay. Like, I mean, you have to think yourself as, great, you're changing the garments, but what about everyone else that went through the same hurdle? You know, are you excusing them? Like, what's happening here? Okay.
That's right. Nathan Hinckley of the Bishop's Interview. So he did a post on his Facebook page. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like he posted something on his Facebook, Darling H. Oaks talk about, the woman being walking pornography. I saw that and I commented right away because me, that's one of my wife's biggest problems is like, what the, this garment change. When I was younger, I couldn't do this, and now it's allowed, you know. But I like Nathan Hinckley because that dude's not afraid to speak up. I
He's a
look
good
at
dude.
him and he goes, you know what? To each their own. The guy has the balls to do it. Good on him. And I like him just because, do what you must, man. That to me, I just, I am married to Justine and her whole family's Mormon, and I'm trying to find space to understand them, and generally they've been good to us. But I just wish that people could just understand both sets, ex-Mormons and Mormons, that there's got to be a way when we can separate the two and just get along and just love each other. But that's never going to happen when you have leadership kicking people out of church for essentially just feeling like they've been betrayed. And you cannot stop people from feeling betrayed, and speak up. So this is a problem that is never going to be solved because I understand why people feel this way. Totally. For me, with the stories of baseball, the stories of my childhood, my parents teaching me things, I resent the church because my parents tried their best to be parents, the best version of parenting. And I sadly spat on it, told them I was a terrible terrible person to them just
That's
because
right.
based on
You
the
were
fact
20.
that they didn't have the gospel in their lives.
That's right. You were 20 and you were more righteous than them,
I
and they
was
were
more
less
righteous than
than.
them.
And the church stole that family relationship with you
It
from their
hijacked
lives.
my family from me. And I'm finally connecting with them again. But this is what happens. Families can be together forever. I certainly didn't have that with my own parents. And if you're telling
Right.
me that there is a heaven and I don't see my parents there and my friends have left the church, then we have a big problem
That's right.
because that's not a
Hypocrisy.
heaven I want to be in. You
That's
know,
right.
I went on a rant.
There you go. So that was fun. So your dad's going to see this, and he's going to see a future in podcasting for you now. And he's going to buy you a microphone, get you
you,
a studio.
he went to, he thought Mormon Stories, uh, and I had to translate the whole 6 hours. And the first thing my dad says, like, dude, you got the charisma, you could do this.
That's right.
and,
You know,
and maybe
I
there's something in the pipeline.
maybe
Who
you could
knows?
be the Hispanic Mormon Stories, the Hispanic John DeLynn.
Wait, man, John DeLynn is so good at it. You know, um,
But that's the one thing is that's what I did Latter Daily Digest was to promote all the other podcasts because John DeLynn is the gorilla in the room. He's the powerhouse. He's talented, but he doesn't reach everybody. And so
yeah,
everybody's
that's one
voice,
thing.
just like teammates, right? The first baseman, the third baseman, the right fielder, the pitcher, the catcher, everybody needs everybody else. You can't play all the positions.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that I was thinking that I wanted to put something together for after the episodes of Mormon Stories. So many people reached out, and I was thinking that maybe this is something that maybe I should do here for the people. Mormonism here in Ontario is so small, you know. Once you leave Mormonism here, I got lucky. Me and Justine got lucky because we have a huge community of people that have left the church. But I do understand that there's other communities like Northern Ontario and also Central Ontario that you walk away, you lose everything. This is not like Utah where you walk away and it's so
Nobody will do
prevalent
business with
Mormonism.
you.
The whole world, and this is something that Mormons don't understand, is that the world is not out there to get you. You know, you leave Mormonism and people don't even know what that is. We have neighbors here, like our whole entire neighborhood. We're the only ones that were used to be Mormon. Everybody else is something else. You know, so I thought that it will be great. Sorry, I'm holding the phone because it's about to die, but I want to do something. I'm thinking about it to just maybe bring others on the local level and give them a voice and help them. Hey man, like, look, tell your story. uh if you want to rant about it, go tell it. I know John DeLynn has his structure. He's such a professional, man. Like, when I showed up in there, like the way he does things, like, holy crap. This is high end. But for me, I just want to give people the chance talk. I
Sure.
went to Mormon Stories because I felt like this. Nobody wants to talk to me about it. I might as well go public. Like, if you're
Mhm.
not gonna talk to me about it, I'm gonna go public. And
We're going to
I,
find
I
a way to talk.
yeah, like, I mean, I felt suffocating. I felt like I can't hide this. I have so many emotions. I want to talk to people, but once you leave, nobody wants to talk to you about anything. You
But I
know?
can't think of any Mormon that I wouldn't want to be their friend just because they're Mormon. I want to be Mormons' friends, right? I,
Yeah. To me, um, I have friends that are still active, and I love them. I love them so much, and they reach out to me, and we talked, and that was enough for me to know, like, brothers forever, man. Because there's some guys, there's a couple friends from the Welland War that they had not walked away. Most of my friends from Welland walked away, but there's a few that are still active, and they reached out, and I'm able to put them in one spectrum of like, they're Mormon, but they also understand friendship. They also understand the value of you as a person, and whether we agree or disagree, I want to take this Mormon journey out as politics. We had the liberals and the conservatives here going at it when election comes. But 2 weeks later, I'm friends with liberals and conservatives, and I don't give a shit.
That's right.
And then we'll
It's
go at
still
it when election comes again. We'll
right.
hate each other for 2 weeks, but we move forward. That's what I want with Mormonism is like, I do want to have a friendship with these people. But I just don't want to be in a room where I know for a fact that I am being judged for being me.
Right. Or being suffocated and not allowed to speak because they don't
Exactly.
like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand is like, I don't care if you do whatever you want, stay a member,
Yeah.
but history is history, facts are facts. And don't think badly of Ben or Gene or other people that are
No.
choosing something different because they heard more information than you did.
Exactly. And that to me, I look at John DeLand, and I look at you now, and I listen to the bishop's interview with Nathan, and another realm of other podcaster, Elisa Grenfell, all these things, and these are people that were once Mormon. These are people that came from a place of hurting and betrayal, and they're offering their room and their time to inform you. And the way I look at John DeLynn is as a person that, when I was in my darkest place of me being confused, and he came as someone that helped me. Holy shit, I'm not crazy.
That's the biggest thing.
I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. I didn't seek your podcast or John DeLand's like, oh, I feel like leaving the church. Is there any podcasts out there that can help me pull out? No, you begin with a question and another question and another doubt and another doubt. And when everything is in your mind already and you don't get answers, that's when the other podcasts come in. They don't pull you out. John DeLand doesn't pull people out of church. John DeLand just makes people feel like you're not crazy.
Right. And
You're not nuts to think this way.
we'll tell Dallin Oaks that research is the answer.
Yeah, like I just want people that are active right now that might be listening to this, or Mormon Stories and all that. You guys come much later in the equation. The journey begins with you, and it begins with you in church. It doesn't begin with the podcasting community. These things serve as means for us to validate the things that we already found out.
Right.
And if we don't allow ourselves to be a little more open to our feelings, intuition doesn't come from the devil. Intuition is you. Okay? There's no such thing as like, oh, I feel this. That's you, man. That's you telling you shit. Listen to your intuition. Okay?
I like to tell people, look, if you believe in God, God blessed you with a brain, right? God created your brain. Don't you think God wants you to use it?
Exactly. And for me, okay, I'm trying to rediscover what Ben Jalaff believe now. If you ask me if I believe in God, I don't know. I don't know. Because the God that I learned in Mormonism, I'm starting to feel like it's either a different God or a misunderstood God. I just don't know. I cannot deny his existence. I cannot deny that. I don't have enough information. But all I know is what I was given for the 37 years I was a Mormon, is that's all I know. So I want to also be open-minded to the possibilities that if I were to believe in God again years from now, I like to believe in a God that loves me no matter what. He loves me because I'm a good person, whatever that means. And whoever that comes, for me, being a good person is loving your friends, loving your neighbor, loving your being the best version that you can be. And that's that. Not having these extra layers of things that you have to do, because I don't believe in that anymore. I don't believe that you're broken goods forever and you constantly need to be running for a forgiveness. Like
Right.
that is what I felt as a Mormon, is that I'm constantly broken.
It's like a hamster in a treadmill.
Yeah, I'm constantly broken and I constantly need fixing. And for me, it's like, if God loves me, He knows I'm trying my very best, whatever that looks like. So,
That's right.
yeah.
So I think, Ben, that you are full of wisdom, and that if you do decide to do podcasting, we'll have you on again and we'll promote your channel.
Stay tuned, everybody. It's
That's right.
coming. It's
Stay
on the
tuned.
pipeline right now. And we'll see what happens.
That's right. And everybody go watch Ben on the Mormon Stories episode if you haven't seen it. Like I say, in the description, there'll be a link. And I'll put a link to the bishop's interview because I love Nathan.
Yeah, like,
Well,
um, I like him because he's a representation of what happens when you feel
betrayed.
that all years of hard work and just somebody pulls the rug out of you. And the way he talks and the way he conducts himself, I look at him like, this dude is me, you know, but I'm from Venezuela, you know, um, and I respect him from that, because honestly, the stuff I read on the comments on his Facebook sometimes, like, oh my goodness, you got to have a stomach to take it, you know. But that's his truth, man. That's how he helps himself move forward.
That's right.
That's
He's
his whole
processing.
honesty. Why are we denying people to be their whole full self honest? So I respect that. I respect him. He just did his Mormon stories with his daughter. I take stones. Good for the daughter, for goodness sakes, like, good on her. You
That's right.
know, those are 4 hours of vulnerability and explaining how you felt. Good on them. You know, takes guts. Going to Mormon Stories or going in here takes stones. You have no idea. If you watch a podcast right before we go here, if we watch a podcast, there's going to be it when John Lynn pans the camera to me. Uh, it was, and I was doing this movement. It's because how incredibly nervous I was,
That's
because
right.
I'm finally speaking, I'm finally releasing.
Right.
So I respect what you're doing, brother. I respect you and your labor. I respect Nathan Hinckley, Elisa Grenfell, Nemo the Mormon, RFM, John Lynn, blah, blah, blah. I can go on. They put themselves out there for people like me to come out of this the best we can be.
That's
So,
right.
man, I'm gonna try to join those pylons to help my fellow Canadians here. I want my fellow Canadians to feel like they have a voice. They need to speak. We have people in Canada that want to speak. You know, this Mormon Stories podcast that I did have helped so many that I didn't know were even aware that they were having a faith crisis, and seeing my podcast with me and Justine, just holy crap, maybe there's something here. Maybe we need to
There you
help
go.
people out too.
Maybe your channel can be called Maple Leaf Mormonism.
No, no, don't curse my channel with the Maple Leafs. We'll lose subscribers right away, man. I'm telling you.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Ben, for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Gene.
This might probably run on the weekend. I'll let you know when it runs. And everybody have a great rest of the 2025. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Gene. Anytime.